Everyone is present except for Kilby. If I could get a motion for approval of our previous meeting minutes. Can I get a second? All in favor? We have two pieces on our old agenda. We have ordinance amending and supplementing Title 5, Chapter 50 Sewers of the Code of Ordinance in the City of Akron declaring an emergency. We took time on this last week, so any council members could ask any questions that they may have. Did you get any? Didn't get any. You have any questions, Mr. Hope?
No, I just I had asked for the numbers that they had used in order to reach.
Oh, that's the next one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the next. That's okay. We're on the next. This is the first one that has to do with Article 3, the 12-page document. Please note that Mr. Kilby is present. So if we don't have any questions or discussion to the old piece on the agenda, what do you want, consent?
Consent would be fine.
Can I get a motion for consent? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, on to our second one. Ordinance amending and supplementing Title 5 Public Works Chapter 50 Sewer Section 50.22 Sewer Service Charges of Code of Ordinances City of Akron to establish summer sprinkling program rates for residential customers in the City of Akron, declaring an emergency. This is still sitting on here for time. Mr. Hoke had a question.
No, I just wanted to continue time. I asked for some information and just got it just as I got here today, so I haven't had time to look over it.
So we're going to continue to take time.
Continue time.
So we're going to continue time on that. Can I get a motion for time?
So,
all in favor?
aye.
Okay. Ayes have it. On to our new piece of legislation. One second. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to participate in the Water Resource Restoration Sponsor Program, WRRSP, and to enter into a sponsorship agreement with the entities listed in Exhibit A for the sponsorship of environmental restoration and preservation projects under the WRRSP and declaring an emergency. Mr. Little, Mr. Moore.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I have one of the finest young engineers in the city of Akron that's here to explain this program.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. What an introduction. I'm Heather Ollinger from the Engineering Bureau, and this WRSP program is a program that we've been working with Ohio EPA since 2015, and these projects will be sponsored by our WRF Headworks project, and the savings to the city will be about $1.8 million over the life of the loan. So the loan term is 45 years, and so what happens is the state advances a portion of the interest that we would pay on our sewer loan, and in turn we get an interest rate reduction. And for this project, our interest rate reduction is 0.09%.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any question from council members? What's your pleasure?
Yes.
Consent fine?
I'm sorry.
We're going to ask for a suspension of the rules because of the timing of this. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Can I get a motion for suspension of the rules?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. If there's nothing else coming before us, we are adjourned.
Okay, we'll move right into the Rules Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll now call the Rules Committee to order. All members are present. If I could have a motion on our previous meeting, on the minutes from our previous meeting. May I have a motion to accept? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes pass as written. We have nothing on our new agenda, but we do have a few items on our old agenda. The first one, last week under rules, our first item, it was the first reading and referred. It was a resolution setting forth the timing and process for the organizational meeting of the incoming new council, providing for other matters related to the new council, and declaring an emergency. With the sponsor of this particular piece, Madam President, would you care to speak on this?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just hope that council members had an opportunity to review the piece. I did have a few council members who came to me and asked a few questions. Again, this piece is really just more so just a best practice. The law department came to me some weeks ago and said that in our rules for years, we had been allowing individuals who were not yet council members to vote on council leadership. And so the whole idea, although we've been doing something for years, does not mean that it's necessarily the best practice or the best way to do it. And so what we're proposing in the piece is that come the first of the year, when all of our 5 newly elected council members are official, January 1, allowing them to vote on council leadership. So that piece allows for that. The piece also allows for us to clean up the agenda every year. I have a piece still on old business. There's a few other pieces that are still on old business. So every year we would clean up the agenda. So at the beginning of the year, council is dealing with a fresh slate. So again, it's a best practice. To my understanding, that is the practice that Congress does. It's also the practice that House of Representatives do. But just to be very clear, if council members wish to bring a piece back in that was on the old agenda, you're more than welcome to do so. It's just starting off the year with a fresh slate. So I don't know if there's any other additional questions that council members might have.
Are there any questions from members of the committee first? Councilwoman Amobian.
I'm just curious, is it best practice, I don't know this, to swear people in the end of the year versus the beginning of the term? Like the first meeting of the year?
So the charter actually prescribes when council members should be sworn in, so it's in the charter.
So we have to go to the voters to get that changed?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else on the committee has a question? I do have a question. Will cleaning up the agenda, will that cause us, this is probably more towards the law department, will this cause us or prevent us from moving things forward and giving pieces time as we need them if we then clean it up and file them if they're not addressed? Do you think this will stop?
Can you clarify that question? What do you mean?
I'm not sure if I can, but I'll try.
Okay.
Okay. My question is if we say, will that stop us like from bringing something in that may need more discussion, okay? Will it stop us from bringing something in maybe the 1st of December, and when it's brought in, we find that there's more information that's needed that needs to get back to us, and also more discussions needed, and it'll get filed then?
So I think the idea would be, again, what the president said is those pieces could be reintroduced. If this council doesn't find they have enough information to deal with it, then the new council could take that issue up in the new session by introducing a new piece of legislation or the same piece of legislation if they felt that they still wanted, if the new council wanted to address an issue. But if this council doesn't have enough time, then it would just stay on the agenda and be filed at the end of the year.
Okay. All right. I guess it was more, it shouldn't have been a question, it should have been more of a concern. Because I can almost see where some good things may not come in, thinking it won't have adequate time, to be addressed. But thank you for your answer. Anyone else on the committee? And then I'll turn it over to members of council. Okay. Any other member of council care to address Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple questions. One in regards to legislation that carries over. I mean, I can understand part of the reason for clearing the slate clean, but one of the challenges that we have is that the delay in getting information to vote on legislation is so, it takes longer than it should take. And then, I mean, there's legislation that we passed and we don't even get reports on, you know, how's it been enacted? I mean, one that I'm thinking of is the LIFT program that's dealing with this issue with the water, where we passed legislation where we would be able to help residents who get behind on their water bills by connecting them with financial services. I've asked the service department, it was passed from Mr. Moore back to Mr. Fricker, and then I still don't know who's going to get the answer. So my concern is, now that's on a piece that we've passed, and there's other ones that we've passed and they just sit dormant. My concern is with the legislation that, you know, we're waiting for information to come back, be it from the law department or from the administration, and we don't get it. And, you know, then we've got to start back from square one. So, I mean, in theory, I understand how others do it, but I know I refer to the league where resolutions come in, they stay on the books, and then they are brought back before, but they're not like wiped off to where you lose the paper trail. So that's my one main concern in regards to taking the legislation off.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council members have a question or concern? Okay. What is the pleasure by the sponsor? Did you want to go ahead and move on this, or would you like time? Or
I'm asking that we do move on it.
move on it? Okay. Is there a motion from the committee? To place it on the consent agenda? Is that your motion?
That's fine.
Favorable?
You want to turn your microphone on, Mr. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Clerk.
We would like to ask for suspension of the rules.
Okay. Then my motion will be for suspension of the rules.
Okay, I have a motion for suspension of the rules. Is there a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the agenda under suspension of the rules. Will come before us again tonight. We have two other pieces under rules that are old pieces, and I must apologize, I have not spoken to Councilwoman Moses. Okay, did you want time on that piece? Okay.
If we could, I don't know how you want to handle it. I want to pull mine, and I'll bring mine back in at a later date.
Okay, so this was number 2 under time. This is a resolution urging the Ohio Secretary of State and Ohio General Assembly to create a process at which independent, nonpartisan voters may vote in a political party's primary without declaring for that party and declaring an emergency. And the sponsor of this resolution has pulled this resolution, would like it to be filed, Mr. Clerk.
Okay.
Okay, so there'll be no vote on this at the time. The third one that's on our old agenda is a resolution amending resolution number, you know what, first of all, the sponsor of this would be Madam President. Would you like me to read this back in again and to take a vote, or would you like time?
I'm just going to ask, you're more than welcome to read it back in if the committee will just file it.
Okay. The resolution number 3 is resolution amending resolution number 53-2012 as amended to revise and supplement Rule 6.11 for the Rules of Procedure for Akron City Council to ensure timely and orderly assignment of legislation for consideration by committees in declaring an emergency. The sponsor of this piece has pulled this piece, so we will file it. Is there anything else to come before the Rules Committee? Hearing in, oh, Councilman Neal.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, for not being aware, but the piece on campaign contribution, isn't that under?
No, that was pulled a couple of weeks ago by the sponsor.
No, I thought I had a piece on there too.
No, I don't have it in front of me. The sponsor was Councilman Fusco.
No, I remember her piece. Yeah. Yeah, I know it's older. I don't think we ever voted on it, though. We never voted on it. That's why I'm wondering, based on our new, what's before us, this is the one about campaign contributions?
I'm going to have to tell you I don't have it in front of me, so I would have to, do you have it? Okay.
Okay.
Might I have time on that, and we can
Oh,
bring
sure.
forward?
I mean, I'm going to say, I think we have 2 more meetings in which we can vote.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Okay, but I have to tell you, I don't have that on
Okay, I
my old
understand.
stuff, so I will get it so that if we're going to clean it up, like you say, we'll bring it forward.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. I may have forgotten something, but, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Councilman Neal, I will tell you that Councilman Fusco brought a piece in about contributions, and he pulled that, would you say, quite a while ago, 2-3 weeks ago?
I don't remember it coming before us, but I mean, just so that we can, I think it's something that it came up during this council's, this 4-year term. I think this council are the proper ones to address it, so.
Okay, and we'll look for that other one, but thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else to come before this committee? Hearing and seeing none, we are adjourned.
Well, I remember it on the agenda. I think Fusco filed it because there was no support for it. What? I don't think we have one.
And then he brought in another one that countered it. I'm trying to remember what he said.
Jeff's was like 1,000 for at large and 750 for council members, something like that.